Hello and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. First of all, I would like to thank you to the organizers for having me back again for the second time, and thanks for tuning in. I was asked to talk about the EU's war on vaping and what citizens can do about it. I'm Michael. I'm from the World Vapers Alliance. We are a consumer organization representing vapers around the world. Before I get into the EU regulatory things that are happening at the moment, I'd like to give you a short introduction to the World Vapers Alliance and what we do. So our general mission is to amplify the voice of passionate vapers around the world and to empower them to bring change to their communities and be able to raise their voices. We do that directly with individual vapers and consumers, but also with partner organizations. Here you can see how our membership structure looks like. We have currently 23 vaping partner organizations, basically around the world, and more than 13,000 individual vapers who are members from the World Vapers Alliance. We basically have three main goals, and all our activities are planned around those three goals. So goal number one is to give vapers a voice and ensure that their voice is heard in policy discussions around the world. So we try to amplify their voices, but also to help them, direct them where to raise their voices best. And the second goal is to ensure fact-based and sound vaping regulations. And as you can see later, unfortunately, nowadays that means most of the times fighting bad regulation and bad policy proposals. And our goal number three is to combat misinformation about vaping. This is especially in the media. I think here in this audience, I don't need to tell anybody that negative or fear-mongering headlines get easier into the news, and the good and great stories about vaping are rarely told. And we try to change that a little bit and try to shed a light on the positive stories of vaping and also on the unintended consequences, what most of the policy recommendations and proposals we will talk about have. So as I said, all our activities and campaigns, they run around those three goals, and we try to achieve them with obviously the help of our partners. Here you can see an overview of our partner network. So those are organizations, national, but also regional organizations. The World Vapers Alliance was founded about a year ago, so I think this network is already pretty good, I would say. And we try to support each other in every way we can and fight all the battles we can. But today we will talk about the European Union. So we know basically that the European Union is a very influential player worldwide when it comes to tobacco and vaping regulation. So many regulations which the EU implements, they become more or less the gold standard for other regulatory agencies like the WHO. And a lot of times we see a kind of, I would call it vicious circle even, where the EU implements some regulation and then the WHO says, oh, because of the EU implemented this regulation, we need to regulate it as well, or vice versa. So one organization references to the other, and then we end up with really bad regulation. And that is why we decided it is important this year, or actually last year when we started, to have a major campaign in the European Union, especially when we think about COP9 coming up. Then regulation from the EU now will have consequences for the rest of the world as well. So we thought we need to be engaged, and vapers need to have a chance to voice their opinion as well. In the European Union, but also for the sake of the rest of the world, because of COP9, which will be come up. Oh, sorry, what's that? My apologies. So, should be back again. So basically, as it is now, we have the European Beating Cancer Plan coming up. The European Commission set out last year that they want to come up with a holistic plan to beat cancer, obviously, and one part of it will be prevention. So our goal with this campaign is to implement vaping as a harm reduction method to fight cancer. Before we go into the details of the European Beating Cancer Plan, it is important to understand that the Beating Cancer Plan is kind of a vision or roadmap where the EU wants to go with beating cancer, but also with regulation on tobacco and vaping. So it's not quite a law yet. It's just a general framework. And those recommendations which will be put into the European Beating Cancer Plan need to be later implemented with other directives. And in our case, it is the Tobacco Products Directive and the Tobacco Taxation Directive mainly. So basically now the goal is to have vaping in a positive way implemented in the European Beating Cancer Plan, so that then the actual regulation, which is referred to the plan, will be drafted in a positive way. But as I say, currently we are at the top level only, and as it usually is in the European Union, when they come up with a plan like this, it needs to be agreed by all three major players, so the EU Commission, the EU Parliament, and the European Council, so the member states. Currently, the EU Commission already published its version of the Beating Cancer Plan, and the European Parliament is working on it and will publish it soon as well. So at this point of time, I only can talk about the content from the EU Commission's version. And we already knew that the Commission is always very skeptical and harsh towards vaping. And I have to say their draft is as bad as it could get. So it is a really, really tough one to get over for us. So we'll see what's happening. We will see it later. I will just go quickly through what the Commission proposed to do. It recommends a flavor ban. It wants higher taxation on vaping products and an extension of outdoor smoking bans to vaping. So yes, that's the plan, how the EU Commission thinks they can beat cancer and lower smoking rates. It's quite astonishing to me how you can come up with this if you want to lower smoking rates and then making vaping less appealing, or if they would go through fully on this, basically outlaw it, because then it would be very hard to still get your hands on vaping products. And I mean, it should be quite clear, as in this picture, it says that all those recommendations will have bad consequences and unintended consequences, and they are not hidden. If you look a little bit deeper into those topics, we will see that right away. So let's start with the flavors ban proposal. We know that about 2/3 of vapers are using some kind of flavor, and those numbers are basically the same around the world. So clearly flavors matter also for adults. And since the vast majority of vapers are former smokers, it is quite clear that flavors matter. for me personally, it's the same thing. If I wanted to quit cigarettes, and then flavors were the hook for me, because it didn't remind me anymore of the cigarette taste. So obviously, flavors are important for adults as well. And I think that's one of the main issues with flavors, what politicians also don't understand, that, I don't know, a strawberry taste is also good in a liquid flavor to vape, and not just in a cake or candy or the actual fruit, where adults like flavors as well. So why shouldn't they like flavors in liquids as well? So that this is always very, very narrowly and short-sighted with just the protection of young people and youth. And then the current vapors are completely forgotten. Also, science shows us that flavors are an important part of vaping, because people who are using flavors are more than 2 times as likely to quit smoking compared to those who don't use flavors. Same here. If I want to get away from a cigarette, I need something which doesn't taste like a cigarette. Should be quite obvious, but apparently it's not that obvious. So what consequences would a flavor ban have? There are basically just 3 options left for vapers if all flavors would be banned. Either they go to the black market, they shop in other jurisdictions, or they go back to smoking. Last year, together with our partner organization, the Consumer Choice Center, we did write a research paper on exactly this topic, why flavors matter, and looked into the numbers. And as you can see, they are quite astonishing. So if we always looked if there would be a full flavor ban, so including mint as well and menthol. And then you can see in the US, it would be up to 7.7 million people who could be pushed back to smoking. In Germany, it's 1.3 million. That's about the size of Munich. France, 1.6 million. So it's quite astonishing how high those numbers are. And I don't really understand why politicians would risk pushing all those people back. Normally, they always argue with the gateway for young people, but they completely forget the adults, which is a huge problem, I think. I think if we want to tackle adolescents vaping, then we need to enforce existing laws. They are not allowed to buy it at the moment anyway. And by banning flavors, I think we would take the essence away of vaping for so many people, and it would have a devastating effect on public health in the EU. So this is one of the main things I think we need to fight against. The second big part of the proposal is the tax increases on, first I go to the black markets again for the flavor ban. For us, quite obvious, that's the second option when people don't want to go back to smoking. Just because you outlaw something, the demand doesn't go away for in this case, flavors. So many people will just go to the black market. We all know that that is not a good idea, because there is no product control, no quality control. We all know that the actors are on the black market are most of the times not the nice neighbors from next door. So they don't care about the health of their consumers or the age of the consumers. And we even have already real life examples for the unintended consequences from the flavor bans in the US, where a couple of states already implemented them, and we saw a huge increase in black market activity. So the EU just needs to look into other jurisdictions where exactly those proposals are already implemented and have very bad consequences. So it's baffling how the EU Commission cannot see this, but as usual, it's quite a black box and probably some other agenda behind it. So now the second part of the Commission's proposals, apart from the flavor ban, is an increase in tax rates. And it says in their proposal, it's still a little bit vague. We don't really know what they exactly plan to do, but it says, and let me quote, the EU says decisive action will be taken by reviewing the Tobacco Taxation Directive. So compared in the light of the whole proposal, I think that doesn't mean any good to come. I'm afraid that they will fall in the same trap as they usually do, to equate vaping with smoking, which would mean same taxation for vaping as well, and massive tax increases. And they already say that in the proposal as well. So they say extending taxation to novel tobacco products. They don't specify, sorry, what extending exactly means, but I guess it means from cigarettes to vaping as well. And we already are seeing what happens when politicians who don't really understand the issue of vaping or have some other agenda in Germany at the moment, because last week the German government implemented or brought a law into the German parliament which would triple the price of a shot of nicotine. So really crazy, and it seems like there is no upper limit on taxation. So I'm a little bit fearful that we will get from the EU Commission then a minimum taxation, most likely no upper limit, only the minimum. So that means it will be a huge battle in every country when they need to implement those directives, and probably in times like this where the state budgets are low and expenditures are high, some politicians will be looking for new revenue streams, and I'm a bit fearful that that might be us, the vapers. But yeah, we will see about this. It's not clear yet, but what it is clear that it will have very bad consequences if the taxation rate, if the tax rates will be so high. Obviously, as you can see in this study here, if you increase the price relative to cigarettes, then fewer people will either switch to vaping or keep vaping, or others might fall back to smoking. And I think that's very a sad proposal as well, because it hits the most disadvantages most. We see the highest smoking rates in those kind of groups, in the low-income groups. And for them, a lower price is essential to make the switch. Otherwise, they will never switch, or they can't afford to switch it, to switch to vaping. So completely crazy in my point of view. And like with the flavor ban, obviously you can't increase taxes unlimited, because at some point people will just stop to buy those products, and will also go to the black market again. I mean, we saw this with traditional cigarettes already, and we will see it with vaping as well if they increase taxes that high. But we will see about that. There is also a consultation on this at the moment running, so I encourage everybody to participate. I will have later a link to it, and then you can see it in more detail. And it's also, the German example is also quite interesting, because during the legislative process, when they published the law the first time with this massive tax increase, even the police union called this a startup for smugglers and counterfeiters, And the customs union also said that due to this tax, and they specifically mentioned liquids, black market will inevitably be created or will develop. Then, because it was published yesterday, a short side note to the SHEAR report. This is the scientific committee, advisory committee of the EU Commission. And the EU Commission asked them to write a report on e-cigarettes and the health effects. And yesterday, they came out with the final report. The draft was really bad, and we criticized it heavily, and it was basically criticized by the whole scientific community. So then there was a consultation as well. And yesterday they published the final version of it. There are other people and scientists who are more qualified to comment on it. I just want to share this part of it, and it's my favorite part, where the SHEAR report says that vaping is a gateway to smoking, and there is weak evidence that it is a smoking cessation method, or that it works as a smoking cessation method. And I was completely shocked when I read this yesterday. It goes against basically all newer evidence we have and all our experiences as consumers. I literally personally don't know anybody who would start with an e-cigarette and become a smoker. It's always the other way around. And or if we look at especially the science and literature work in the UK, we see exactly the opposite. And the SHEAR report ignored everything. To their defense, we also need to say that the EU Commission, even in their asks for the report, said they don't want a comparison to smoking. They just want to have a study on the health effects of vaping, which already shows that there is some kind of agenda against vaping, or at least they don't want to see the full picture of it, because not comparing vaping with smoking makes no sense at all, since literally all vapers are former smokers. So very bad sign. So after all of this, I admit that sounds very, very negative and seems like we are doomed. But I think we still can influence things and can change the course of those kind of bad regulations. And I'm optimistic if consumers raise their voices, but also the vaping industry raise their voice, we still can influence this. And as I said, the current European Beating Cancer Plan proposal is only out from the EU Commission. So there will be also one from the European Parliament, and they are currently working on their version of the plan, and they will publish it in the next 2 weeks, I think. And I'm more optimistic there. And that was clear for us from the beginning that the Commission will do their thing. And we decided to have a campaign called Back Vaping, Beat Cancer, which targeted the European Parliament. Since the members of the Parliament are our representatives, it's also quite naturally that we address them. Here you can see a picture of our main landing page, where we started a petition to include vaping as a harm reduction tool into the Beating Cancer Plan, and similar to the UK, to endorse current smokers to switch to to vaping, sorry. We have it in different languages, and you can find it on worldvapersalliance.com/petition. So basically what we try to do there is, with this whole campaign, to inform politicians and members of parliament about vaping. I think that is the most important part of it. but also to give consumers a way to raise their voices and contact MEPs, and also obviously to put some pressure on MPs to carefully consider what they think about vaping and what they want to do about it. So here you can see what we encourage our members and consumers to do, to sign the petition, obviously, but also to direct contact MEPs. Admittedly, I always thought that doesn't help and doesn't make a difference. But before I joined the World Vapers Alliance, I worked in the German parliament, and there I've seen it. It makes a difference. If a politician receives 10, 20 genuine emails from vapers explaining them why vaping helped them or how vaping helped them and how it changed their life, then they at least start to think about this topic. And I think this is already the first very important step, because many politicians are very uninformed about it and don't think about vaping. So they equate it automatically with smoking. And then in their head, it means we need the same regulation for vaping than for smoking. So I think in general, it's very important to raise our voices, and we shouldn't underestimate the power of consumers and other organizations to influence those processes. And currently we have already more than 8,000 signatures of the petition. So unfortunately, to COVID, we weren't able to bring it in person there yet, but I hope soon we can do something with that. But as I said, the second important thing is to get in contact with your MEP directly. And we as an organization, we try to make that as easy as possible. So everybody who signed the petition automatically got to a portal where he sees his MEPs and can directly contact them and send them an email via the contact form. So super easy and very powerful. Here you see just some highlights what else we do about the campaign. So we try also to get into media and to show a different story, and that vaping can be a very, very successful instrument in beating cancer and shouldn't be treated like smoking. So we have a huge media campaign there as well, also with the organizers of this conference. So very grateful and thankful that they sometimes cover our things as well. And what I'm very proud of, what we also did is, I don't know if you call it a virtual protest, because it was actually in Brussels, but without people. So thanks to the COVID restrictions, we said we need to show our faces in Brussels at some point. And since we weren't allowed to gather there, we said, let's put our faces on some cardboard cutouts and set it up in front of the parliament and protest in that way and bring some stories to the parliament in this more creative way, I would say. So again, I think, and it sounds always cheesy to say raise your voice and be loud, but I think it's very important that everybody of us is doing that, because our opponents, if you want to call it like them, try to shame us, silence us, put us down. We saw this with smokers already. Every smoker knows that feeling, and I think we shouldn't allow that to happen with vaping again. Obviously, for me, it's also a little bit of self-promotion. So I encourage all consumers to join a national and or international consumer organization, because we all know everybody has their own lives, jobs, families, hobbies. So it's hard to keep up with all the developments in the vaping world and in all the different countries. And that's what consumer organizations can facilitate. So we try to filter out all the important developments around the world and then point to the members and consumers where it's most helpful and where is the best chance to be successful, to engage with somebody or to follow some specific action. So basically, we try to do the work which many people can't do and don't have the time to do it on their own. So I think as a consumer who wants to be active, it's very important to become a member of one of the organizations. Obviously, everybody's welcome to become a member of the World Vapers Alliance as well. And another good way to engage as a citizen, even though it's sometimes very annoying and hard, is participate in consultations. That is the one opportunity where at least somebody needs to listen to us and read what we bring into the discussion room. So I recommend to do that. I can also show you one of the very successful consultations we had. Apart from the European Beating Cancer Plan, our second big campaign is in the Netherlands. There, they also try to or want to ban flavors, and we thought it's important to step up there and have a campaign, because the Netherlands is always perceived as this progressive, sensible, regulatory country when it comes to lifestyle regulation. And if they would ban flavors, we had the feeling it might have a very bad knock-on effect on other countries. So they would say, oh, even the Netherlands is banning flavors, so we should do it as well. So we set up there a national campaign too. And one part of the campaign was this consultation. So in the Netherlands, it is mandatory if you have a law like this that there needs to be a public consultation. And we try to engage our members and push them to participate. And you can see it was the largest ever public consultation on a health issue with more than 1,000 participants, and 89% of the people who responded were against it. So that was a huge success, I think. And after the breakdown of the government, this consultation, I think, pushed the law back to the next one, because if they wanted to push it through before the election, then it must be not controversial. And I think after a response rate like this with 98% against the law, you can't really declare it non-controversial. So it got pushed back after the election. Now in the Netherlands, they have the coalition negotiations, so we're not sure yet what will happen, but let's hope the best. Here is the other consultation I already talked about before. It's about the tobacco taxation, and it's running till June 22nd. So if you Google tobacco taxation consultation, European Commission, it should come up right away. And I encourage you to participate there, because as I said, consultations make a difference. Admittedly, with the EU Commission, it's harder, and sometimes they neglect it. But even with the SHEAR report, as bad as it is, they toned down after the public consultation a little bit. So for some sections, they lowered the confidence level from high to moderate or moderate to low. So it makes a difference, even though it's sometimes very annoying work, because some of the institutions, they want to make it as hard as possible to participate, and we do a lot of consultation work, but I think it makes a difference. And as a consumer, it's one of the ways where you can directly reach an organization like the EU Commission. So to sum it up, as I said, the next step will be that the EU Parliament will present its version of the European Beating Cancer Plan, and then they will negotiate with the EU Commission about the final plan. And then we will see the Tobacco Products Directive and the Tobacco Taxation Directive revisions, and everything leading up then to COP9 later this year. As I said as well, consumers have a couple of possibilities to join or to make a difference and to raise their voice. Join a consumer organization, participate in consultation, and please contact politicians directly. That really helps. If you have any questions or want to reach out or become a member or whatever is on your mind, I'm always there. You can reach me via email or on Twitter. And I'm not sure if I still have time, but if I may already announce that World Vape Day is coming up as well. So May 30 should be marked in your calendar, and you can find all the infos on our website, World Vapers Alliance, about it. And like last year, it will be a day of celebration of vaping. So we don't want to be too negative and only talk about bad regulations, which are coming from everywhere. This day, we want to celebrate the great innovation of vaping, and I hope you all will join us and celebrate with us. Thank you for your attention. I'm not sure if I should go through the questions right away or if we have a moderator, but if nobody jumps in, I will do that right away. So with flavor bans and unfounded regulation popping up across the EU, do you think campaigns like the Hague Light Show could turn the opinion of key policymakers for the better? Yes, the slideshow actually was one of our campaigns, so I'm highly convinced that we can change things like that and that it helps. Obviously, a politician won't drive by and say, oh, the flavor ban is bad, I'm now against it, but it brings eyeballs to the issue. And I think that is very important in the general public, but also with politicians. A lot of people, they just don't know what vaping is and they don't care what vaping is. So for them, it's just vaping is the same as smoking, and then that's it. And then we get the same regulation as for smoking. And I think public stunts like this vape show or also this cupboard protest, I think that brings in other people to the conversation as well. We have heard it in a couple of talks already during the conference, that one of the problems is that sometimes we are in our own bubble, we talk to each other, we already agree, but it's hard for us, or sometimes hard to get other people to listen. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, it's sometimes hard to get into mainstream media because they love scaremongering stories and scary headlines. And that's why we thought we need to find other solutions for that and how to get attention. And a cupboard protest or the light show in The Hague, and we did one in Amsterdam as well, are a tool for that. So I think that's pretty helpful. Yeah. So why do you think the policymakers ignore evidence to suggest flavored e-liquids can help adult smokers quit more successfully in favor of an exaggerating youth vaping epidemic? Why they ignore it? I think that's probably two parts of politicians, I would say. The ones I already mentioned, who just don't know and don't care. For them, it's just smoking and it's the same. And they don't read into the scientific papers. So I think that's also one of our main goals, but also why we actually exist is to be this link between the scientific world and the policy world. So we always try to do what we do also in the Back Vaping Beat Cancer campaign, is to digest those kind of scientific evidence into a one-pager or maximum two-pager, show some unintended consequences, what will happen, to make it as easy as possible to read. I mean, we know it's the same with journalists and politicians. They don't have time quite naturally, it's a super stressful job. They can't read a 30-page paper. So we try to do that work a little bit and help them a little bit to make it easier to get a better understanding of the topic, and also to demystify some of the common myths. And the person who asked this question already mentioned this gateway myth, which for me personally is one of the strangest myths ever, but it prevails and comes up every time again. And then I would say the second part of the politicians, as I also mentioned, is with youth and young people. That's obviously always a big concern, and I think we need to make that to take that very seriously and explain it also to people that it's actually not that much of a big issue as it's made of. If we look in all the data in basically all countries, underage people who start vaping without having consumed tobacco before is below 1% in almost every country. So still smoking is still the bigger issue, and we need to point that out. But obviously, as I said, if a politician just reads 5 headlines about a youth epidemic, then he believes it, because some of the times it's not his area of expertise, or he doesn't really care and just thinks it's the truth. And I think that's why consumers, but also industry, is very important to inform the politicians about that. And to be honest, most of them are actually open. If you manage to get their attention, they are open about it. And we see it within the European Parliament, where they set up this committee to write the European Beating Cancer Plan, or so their version. We see more and more MEPs who come out in favor of vaping, but also some who at least acknowledge that it's less harmful compared to smoking, and others who at least don't fully oppose it anymore. So it's already a good sign, and I think we can make a difference. And we need to be patient, and obviously it takes a while. Unfortunately, the regulations are coming faster and faster, so I hope we will manage to do that. We have seen politicians in the US change their minds about vaping once they were educated on benefits of relative risk. Do you think this could be replicated in EU policymakers? And have you received any support from MEPs already? Yes, what I just mentioned. I'm highly convinced that we can do that, and that it is possible to maybe not change minds, but to open minds. And those politicians who are open to new ideas and open to research and to facts, we can change that. I think that's possible. We will see if it's enough people in on the Becker committee, which is the one which writes the EU Beating Cancer Plan. And have we received support from MEPs? Yes. I would now mention especially 2 who are coming out in public quite strong in favor of vaping. It's MEP Fiocchi from Italy and MEP Liese from Germany. Those 2 I think are the loudest voices about vaping and in favor of vaping in the Becker committee. And then there is MEP Sokol, who is from Croatia as well, who is also very loud and good proponent of harm reduction and in favor of including it. And then there are others who are kind of between or undecided. But yeah, I think they're at least compared to the Commission in the Parliament, it looks way better. Do you think would ever be to reach a point of consensus among international governments wherein all policymakers respect the science and share a unified idea about harm reduction benefits of vaping? And international consensus among politicians. I think it doesn't really matter what topic it is. We won't achieve that. Not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. I think what probably the question goes into is a little bit of COP9. I think there we will have a unique opportunity this time because there is one new voice in a way, and that's the UK. Since they are not part of the European Union anymore, they can have their own say there and their own stance, and we really hope they keep their ground and keep pushing their successful policies and push back on the crazy WHO proposals which are already out there, like banning open systems and things like that. So I think they're the beacon of hope, I would say, is the UK, and it can make a huge difference this time. So I'm really excited and looking forward to the campaign there. How can we raise awareness in situations where vaping advertising is banned? If that's probably more an industry question, I can't really answer that. But what we do as consumers and what I've shown you as an organization, start to be creative. I mean, we did the carport protest or the light show. We mainly did it because of the COVID regulations. We couldn't do anything in person, so those were the only options how we can raise awareness. But I think if you're an industry representative, you can be as creative as well and do some stunts. Obviously, I would say from a consumer perspective, advertisement bans should be lowered, or how do you say, lifted, because I think it's essential, especially for vapers, to be informed, and for smokers, I'm sorry, to be informed and to be able to receive the right information. And obviously advertisement is one stream of information. So I think that would be a huge difference. And I think maybe at least the UK can use the opportunity after Brexit now to break away a little bit from the tough vaping advertisement bans in the EU as well, and also push back on the WHO level. So, and I think last question. Oh, that's not a question. It's like you said, non-vapers don't care, so we don't have many voices. Yes, might be true, but I think if we can be loud and show people that vaping actually helps millions of people, I think then more people will care. Because if you think about the other way around, how many people talk about smoking and smoking bans and how bad it is, I think if we can frame vaping in a better way as a smoking cessation method, I think more people will care. And especially if we see regulations coming up which have those bad consequences, then the debate will be on. And then it will be a general debate. If we see smoking rates rising again, then I think it will be the opportunity where we need to step in and say, yes, obviously, if you more or less outlaw vaping or make it so hard, more people are starting smoking again, things like that. And I think that can bring in more people. Obviously, we need to try to get into more discussions with other people and not just among ourselves. So I think a conference like this is the perfect opportunity. Yeah, and make alliances as well with other organizations, other harm reduction people and advocates. I think there is much to do, obviously, but I think we can do that. So I think that's it with questions. Then I would say thank you for joining me here, and I wish you all the best. Stay safe, and if you have any questions or anything else, I'm always there. Contact me. Happy to talk to you guys. Thank you, and bye-bye.